Good morning, everyone. It's early in Arizona, about 7 a.m., but it's the summer solstice, for the longest day of the year, which means it's going to get warm. And so we start early in the summertime here before it gets really warm. I'm by my Bristol. If you could see the entire airplane, you'd see the canopy cover is basically still on the airplane because today is a maintenance day. And today we're going to talk about little shit as an adjective and a noun. So I've got here what's called a pitot cover, which is little shit. And the pitot cover that came with the airplane was not very good. It was kind of flimsy. And several weeks ago, when it was exceedingly windy, the pitot cover departed the aircraft, sitting on the ramp, of course. And like some pilots do, uh, I said, I've got to get another pitot cover. And that was not at the top of my list. And time went on, and not a long time, but several weeks. And about a week and a half ago, I went out to fly. And I'll get to the flight in a short period of time, but the flight didn't last too long. And shortly after I started the takeoff roll, it became obvious, uh, shortly after airborne, as a matter of fact, that there was something significantly wrong with my airspeed indicator on the Garmin G3X. And so the flight didn't last too long. And once I got on the ground, I called my A&P mechanic here on the ground, who I had not yet met, and turned the aircraft over to him. And so we're in the process of restoring my airspeed indication to normal. Now, the Bristol is a beautiful airplane, and I never really understood how ungainly my pitot tube seem. It's rather unattractive. And the opening uh, at the front of the pitot tube is very small, as most are. And it turns out that in troubleshooting the problem, uh, I became familiar with the leaf cutter bee, uh, a little shit that can create havoc in a pitot tube. And not just on small aircraft. In researching the leaf cutter bee, I discovered several years ago it created havoc on a 777, several airliners, as a matter of fact, in the United Kingdom. Back then, their procedure was not screwing around with pitot covers on overnights. And that resulted in some delays the next morning, courtesy of leafcutter bees. And here I've included the link to the article. Don't take my word for it, take a look. I do recall reading that back in the day. But at any rate, they're, uh, they're a little shit, and they can create havoc in the pitot tube. And here are some photographs that my A&P provided me that are on this bird. So I thought it was small shit, and it's not small shit. It's big shit. And so I have my new pitot tube cover, much more substantial than the one I lost. And once we get this thing fleshed out, uh, I'll be a little more what would be the word? Studious. The pitot tube cover will be a little bit more of a priority uh, when the aircraft's on the ground. So if you lose your pitot tube cover and think, well, yeah, I'll get around to it to replace it, uh, do it sooner rather than later and avoid a maintenance bill uh, that I'm going to be paying to flesh out your pitot system uh, and avoid getting up close and personal with a leaf cutter bee. So let's talk a minute now about my takeoff experience. Most airplanes have a lengthy, relatively speaking, takeoff roll. So as you apply full power, you have a reasonable amount of time to check your engine instruments, your airspeed, uh, directional control on the runway, and before you get airborne. The Bristol, and I would venture to say most light sport aircraft, you don't have a lot of time. You get full power, check that you're still tracking straight down the runway, and you're airborne. And that's basically what happens. And that's what happened on this particular takeoff. Uh, and as I got airborne, I looked down and my airspeed was giving me 30 knots. Well, the airplane doesn't fly at 30 knots. Normally 40, 45, 50, and then you're climbing out. And I was climbing out quite nicely with an airspeed indicated of about 30 knots. Well, that's not right. Now, I've got a long runway here, about 5,000 feet. On this particular day, uh, early in the morning, no traffic, I elected to save some time without compromising safety and elected to depart from an intersection, which gave me about 4,000 feet of available runway. Uh, we'll get back to that in a minute. So, at any rate, as I'm climbing out, I know something's amiss, uh, but I'm flying safely and I continue to climb out. I had nowhere to go. It was just a local flight, just to make sure I still knew how to fly, take a local tour, come back and land. Uh, so I continued to depart the pattern. Uh, we'll explore that in a minute too. As I continued to fly, the airspeed continued to lag. It wasn't giving me proper readouts. On the other hand, it wasn't giving me any big X on my G3X to tell me that this was unusable. I wasn't getting a stall indication uh, from other apparatus on the airplane. Ground speed readout was still appropriate, so I continued to fly. Uh, then I was getting other indications. I was getting an AOA indicator, which I've never seen before. And then the big red X came up, and the increase of indications told me, well, even though I'm still flying, I probably should return to base. Uh, so I turned around and came back to the pattern. Uh, Entered the downwind. Uh, when you have all the instruments that you normally have, you rely on them, uh, even though you don't necessarily need them. So I reduced the power using ground speed as kind of my standby airspeed indicator. The winds were calm, so I slowed to an acceptable ground speed, if you will. Flew a pattern. There were no other aircraft in the pattern, a short pattern, if you will, and then I slowed a little bit. Once again, I don't know what I was doing. I went one notch of flaps. I've got three, if you will, electric flaps, and descended and got down into the flare area, went full flaps, pulled the power, and with a nice long runway, I let the airplane land when it wanted to land. And then cleared the runway, came and shut down. Well, now, as I've talked about in the past, now you debrief what you did, why you did it, and if you ever want to do it again. So, intersection takeoff, was that wise? On a normal day, sure, I had 4,000 feet of runway and an airplane that takes off in about 800 feet. Today, if I had 5,000 feet and had this airspeed problem, I could have maybe pulled the power and landed on that takeoff. If I had known what in the wide, wide world of sports was going on, I didn't. By the time I realized something was wrong with the airspeed, the airplane was up and climbing. And right then to pull the power, dump the flaps, and try and land with an airplane that had no engine problems. Why? Because I couldn't tell exactly my airspeed. Engine was fine. So that would have perhaps compounded my minor airspeed problem. So that wouldn't have been appropriate looking back. Uh, anyway, so no, that really wouldn't have made the difference. Should I have continued to depart the pattern and go? Probably not. But, and if I had had a destination, if I was leaving here to go to B, A to B, on a trip, I wouldn't have done that. I would have stayed in the pattern because I knew with a known problem with a basic instrument, I wasn't going to go. I probably would have stayed in the pattern. But since I was just going to fly around and take a look around, uh, that's probably why I departed the pattern. So if you're going somewhere and you know you've got a problem with your aircraft, instruments, or what have you, as long as it's not an engine that keeps you real close, real fast, uh, you're probably going to stay in the pattern. So having it to do over again, I probably wouldn't have gone. But in this case, with just a instrumentation problem, it didn't really matter. So other than that, I think I did everything okay. My mistake, if you will, was several weeks earlier when I didn't get one of these post haste and put a sock or something over my pitot tube. I underestimated that little shit, the leaf cutter bee. That's my mistake in this whole thing. Uh, so little shit, little shits, in the case of the bee, uh, can ruin your day and create a dent in your budget and your airplane budget and your flying schedule in creating a maintenance need that otherwise you wouldn't have needed. And little shit, a pitot tube that we generally take for granted, uh, can screw up your flying schedule. So this is important. The pitot tube, as homely as it may be, uh, is an important part, and tiny little insects call it home. So cover that sucker up. Okay, a couple of things. One thing, basically, a new item in our store, a lightweight moisture wicking dry fit, I think they're called, summertime T-shirt. It's great if you're a gym rat or a runner, uh, uh, any kind of exerciser, or just wearing out on the flight line, or if you're flying in the summertime with the logo, wings on the front, full logo on the back. They come in white and gray. Uh, let everybody know you're a light sport Air Force member and a light sport pilot. So it's new on online on the Light Sport Air Force gift shop, if you will. So the link is now showing up here. Go and maybe buy one and get a coffee cup and whatever else might float your boat. So you can go there and do that. Uh, that's about all I can think of, but I wanted to get this out and spread the word. And something we don't think about a lot until we need it. And so allow me to make the mistake and not you. And if you want to send me a few bucks to pay my mechanic, it's okay. Fight the urge, put it in your maintenance bank, and don't make that same mistake. Okay, I hope you're enjoying the flying weather. Fly early because it's hot, and if you're not in Arizona with the dry heat, you've got humidity to worry about too. So I hope you enjoyed this learning moment. Go out and have fun, and as you know, fly safe.